Good morning. Happy 4th of July, and welcome to the 2014 Juvenile Arthritis Conference, United for a Cure. We are very excited that you are here with us in Keystone, Colorado, the site of our very first JA conference in 1984. Back then, we had 108 participants. Today, we have over 1,000 from across the U.S., and with 40 states represented. It's amazing how far we've come in 30 years. Our planning committee has worked hard to ensure that this is a fun and informative event for your family. Together over the next few days, we'll learn a great deal through workshops, networking with other families. We'll have fun along the way, starting with fireworks tonight at Keystone Lake. We would like to thank our sponsors, National Platinum sponsor Amgen, National Gold sponsors AMV and Genentech, and National Silver sponsors Novartis. We would also like to thank the Great West Region sponsors. Without their support, this conference would not be possible. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Ann Palmer, the President and CEO of the Arthritis Foundation. Ann joined the foundation last year and brings more than 30 years of leadership. She also brings an unwavering commitment to fight for the needs of people with arthritis. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Ann Palmer.
Well, good morning and happy 4th of July. It's great to be with you all. Again, I have to start by thanking Julie for a great job. It's just so impressive what she's done. And the conference committee, I thanked them last night, but the conference committee is over 50 people, 11 subcommittees that have worked very, very hard to ensure you have a great experience. So if you all wouldn't mind standing one more time, we'd like to say thank you. You know, some people were kind of concerned about Keystone in the mountains on the 4th of July and whether we would have enough people here and whether people would turn out. But I would say 1,000 people is a pretty good turnout. And so it really shows the dedication and passion of this group, and it's great to be with you. This is my first JA conference, and I've really already been inspired and moved by many that I have met here, and the stories that you've told me and the people that I've met. I've been anticipating coming to this conference for over a year. It was just a year ago that I had my first interview for the CEO job, and many of the members of the search committee and the national board were just coming from the conference and were so enthusiastic and so taken with how they felt about being part of the conference. And that was really impressed me, that our volunteers were so passionate about this audience and this conference. And that was really part of what made it easy for me to make the decision to come to the Arthritis Foundation and be a part of this family. Coming most recently from the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, I know well what an organization can do that's driven by the passion and needs of families. The 30,000 families affected with CF were a formidable force. And I can only imagine the impact that we can have if we channel an audience that's 10 times that big. Think about what we can do and the difference that we can make for all people living with this disease. You're 300,000 people strong, but each of you has unique stories and needs. I think it is critically important to me and to the foundation that we truly understand your needs and we build a strong platform to support you and your children. After I accepted the job last September, one of the first calls I made was to the then JA Alliance president, Colleen Ryan. And most of you know Colleen. She's been a strong voice and face for JA families for many years and has done great work. But the story that she told me of the battle that she and her family fight for her daughter, Caitlin, really touched me and has stayed with me in my 10 months while I'm here. Like Colleen, many of you in this room have fought tirelessly for the needs of your children and for other children affected with this disease. I want to share with you something personal. I want to share with you that I empathize with Colleen and with each of you. I know firsthand, I'm not saying I understand completely, but I understand firsthand the feeling of being helpless when you're told that you have a child that's diagnosed with a chronic disease. Both of my daughters have been diagnosed with Crohn's disease. One of them has a kind of Crohn's disease that really manifests itself as arthritis, and she has extreme joint pain every morning. I remember very acutely the early days. Relief at getting a diagnosis, being concerned that we find the right treatments, what the side effects would mean, and every day, particularly with the older daughter, when the phone would ring, I would wonder, is something wrong? And still I wonder every day about what the impact of this disease will be. And I know that you each have similar concerns. And these concerns are a real part of your life every day. And I want you to know that the Arthritis Foundation gets it. We are every bit as impatient as you are for better treatments, for better access to drugs and to the doctors that your children need to see, and ultimately for the cure to end the pain for all people with juvenile arthritis. There is important and critical work to be done, and the Arthritis Foundation has a moral imperative to take the lead in fighting for the future of our children. And looking over the attendance list, I was struck by the fact that over half the audience, about 500 of you, are new to the JA conference. But whether you're new or you've been here for 14 or 30 years, I hope that you feel the renewed commitment and focus that we're putting on JA as a core focus area within the Arthritis Foundation. In fact, much has changed in the organization's core work since last year's conference in Anaheim. Shortly after I arrived last fall, our organization made the commitment to relook at our roadmap and our focus areas, and to develop sort of a new approach, one that we could be proud of, and we were sure that we could do the best thing about changing lives for the better and firmly establishing the Arthritis Foundation as a leader. So this past February, we had over 60 leadership volunteers from across the country come and join us in Dallas to establish our new organizational priorities. From that work, we agreed on 4 sort of core areas that would be our guiding light as an organization. The first focus area is research, because we know that science will unravel the problem that will ultimately lead to a cure and the end of pain for people with arthritis. The second is advocacy, but with a renewed focus, an assertive focus, on ensuring that people have access to the care that they need. For families with JA, this means fighting for more pediatric rheumatologists and fighting back against exorbitantly high costs of medications. We're not just talking about advocating on Capitol Hill. We're talking about really looking at where the barriers are and working with insurance companies and pharmacy benefit managers to really try to make a difference. Our third priority is help and support. Truly being there for people when and where they need it, providing them help, resources in a personalized manner, serving up the kind of individual information that each person needs. And you'll hear more about this in the coming months as we launch on a sort of an exciting new platform and interactive help and support system. So all of those areas encompass the people in this room and your needs. But we felt like we needed to also establish as a core area 4th priority, which is juvenile arthritis or pediatric rheumatic diseases. Certainly our research and advocacy and help and support encompass needs of families with JA. But we recognize that your needs are unique, compelling, and absolutely urgent. You need customized information to understand your child's condition, treatment options, and you need it now. You have critical social and emotional needs, questions and needs, and you want to have strong connections with other families. We can, we must, and we will be there for you to address those needs. This conference is certainly one of the key ways we focus on the needs of families. But since there are so many of you in the room that are new, I need to remind you that there are other ways that the foundation offers support. We hope that you've participated in some local activities, family days, social gatherings, or camp. We hope that you visited our new website, Kids Get Arthritis Too, for trustworthy information and to make connections with other families. Or perhaps you've had an opportunity to participate with us at the summit in Washington, D.C., or a local walk or other events. And I strongly encourage you to take advantage of these opportunities for knowledge and connection. But even with all this focus and progress that we've enjoyed, nobody is satisfied. We want your child to be pain-free, for there to be the next treatment available should the treatment they're on stop working, or for them to need no treatment at all. Our promise at the Arthritis Foundation is we won't rest until we have better treatments and ultimately a cure for JA. Important work on this front has been led over the past 10 years, by CARA. Some of you know CARA well, and others don't. It's the Childhood Arthritis Rheumatology Research Alliance. The Arthritis Foundation has long been a supporter, and this year, in fact, we'll be giving them over $1 million to support their work. But in the recent months, we have had very productive discussions with the leadership of CARA, as well as the parent-led Friends of CARA group, about becoming more closely aligned and more formally aligned in our work. We share a common goal, understanding childhood rheumatic disease and treatments so that each child can receive the best treatment possible for them, and ultimately a cure. We've also been talking with the leadership at PR Coin about having a stronger relationship with them as they embark on a stronger initiative around quality improvement. I want you to know that the Arthritis Foundation is committed. I am committed, personally, to do everything possible to make life better for your children, today and in the years to come. But we can't do it alone. We can't do it without you. There is still much work to be done, and we must galvanize as a community. We must galvanize and mobilize the entire JA community to achieve our goals. We need each and every one of you to join us in the fight to the finish line. Each of you in this room has the incredible power to make a difference. You may not even realize the power you have. Your stories are the mission of the Arthritis Foundation. Your stories are what make me and other staff with the foundation get up every day and do the work that we do to raise awareness and the seriousness and urgency of this disease. We hear over and over again that taking action is the best medicine. Whether you're advocating for your children's needs in school or on the Hill, you are not powerless. You can make a difference. I often hear, though, that families want more awareness about the disease, believing that if people understood, they would give more money to us. People don't respond to TV ads. People don't see an ad and say, I think I'm going to donate because this disease is bad. People want to help people that they know. People give to people. So I challenge you to think about how can you help us get to the finish line. Organize a family team, many of you do. Organize a family team for walk or Jingle Bell Run. Ask your friends and coworkers to support you or join you in your team. Think about other doors that you could open, your church, social groups. Tell your story through social media. Remember, people care about your story. It is real and compelling, and more powerful than you may think. Over the next 3 days, I encourage you to fully open your minds and hearts. Immerse yourself in this great meeting and all that's here, the resources that are available. Make great connections with families. Learn from the great people who will be making presentations. Then, as you return home, I hope you will keep that energy alive and get involved in your local Arthritis Foundation. We share a dream of a better future for our children. To make a dream a reality takes action. Hope in action is the most powerful force. My hope for you, each of you, is that you leave this mountaintop more knowledgeable, more motivated, more hopeful, and ready to put hope in action. Thank you. We're very serious about our commitment to fighting JA and supporting families, as you know, and I'm honored now to introduce our next speaker, who is a JA dad himself, and he serves on the National Board of Directors and will be our chair next year. Mike is a senior executive at the largest media company in the world. His company is very supportive of his work here. His wife sometimes says she's not sure which job, his one with Comcast, NBC Universal, or this is his most important job. But we're delighted to have Mike as a JA dad be our next board chair, and I'd like to welcome Mike to the stage.
Comcast, NBC Universal pays the bills, but this is my most important job. Let there be no mistake. And I am privileged to work for a company that very generously supports and is willing to allow me to do this, so I thank them. Well, thank you. Good morning. As you know, as a volunteer in any organization, you go through times when you just burn out. You wonder why you do what you do. But then for me, I come to the annual JA conference to recharge my batteries, get completely charged. They really do. I've been doing this volunteer thing for almost 14 years, raising money, advocating on Capitol Hill, and providing help and leadership where I can. But each year I leave this conference inspired by you to go out and do more, so thank you for that. My wife Kate and I have felt the same pain that has touched each of you in this room. Like you, I remember every detail of when I received that call. Daniel did not have growing pains. It was not Lyme's disease. Our little 11-year-old boy had arthritis. In weeks and months that followed, he went from climbing trees to being in a wheelchair. And as we waited for a brand new biologic to be approved for use in children, I watched him endure sleepless nights where the mere touch of a bedsheet to his skin caused excruciating pain. I literally had to carry him to the bathroom because he couldn't walk. Daniel's journey has seen its ups and downs. We experienced a couple of wonderful years where he was symptom-free long enough to earn a black belt in karate. That was cause for a family celebration. Thank you. His current condition is discouraging, but we look forward with hope, as should each of you. We have a great deal of hope for the future. It's a new day at the Arthritis Foundation, not just because of new leadership in many parts of the organization, but more importantly, because of an improving attitude about our one foundation, a foundation that has made, as Ann mentioned, a very public and tangible commitment to juvenile arthritis. Yes, our foundation will continue to serve and support all of the more than 50 million Americans suffering with some form of this dreadful disease. But the 300,000 kids with JA hold a very special place in our hearts and minds. We, all of us in this room, we are the foundation of the foundation. After all, every year, something like 25,000 kids with arthritis become adults with arthritis. In the past year, we've proudly unveiled a new website for JA families, as Ann mentioned, kidsgetarthritis2.org, powered by you and your children. Our national volunteer leadership has overwhelmingly recommitted the organization to have a strategic focus on our kids and families. We've hired a new president and CEO, who you just met, Ann Palmer, who brought to us an incredible track record of leadership and fundraising success at volunteer health organizations. Just last month, Ann spent a couple of days at Camp MASH in Alabama, one of about 50 JA camps supported by the Arthritis Foundation. And she's here this weekend to continue to listen, to learn, and to lead. As you just heard, she gets it. And on behalf of all of us, Ann, we want to welcome you to your first JA conference. Thank you. Our board of directors also gets it. The three were once JA kids themselves. 3 others are JA parents, and many others are deeply engaged in pediatric nursing, rheumatology, and research. A year ago, a half dozen teenagers confidently came to speak to our board about their JA. Each inspired us with their optimistic views of their futures as researchers, as pediatricians, as nurses, and as rheumatologists. They are our future. Then we had lunch with a couple of dozen 20-somethings who don't want to be forgotten. You may think they graduate from JA, but we need to support these young adults because they too are our future. They are willing to give back to our younger children as mentors and more, but first we need to help them get through young adulthood in good health, both physically and mentally. We're here this weekend because 30 years ago, a handful of people decided to get involved and focus on kids. We'll meet and have a chance to thank a few of them in just a couple of minutes. But in the 3 decades since, thousands of parents like you and me decided to get involved. They raised money at a Walk to Cure Arthritis, a local Jingle Bell Run, or other Arthritis Foundation fundraising event. This year alone, the JA Families Walk team raised nearly $500,000, and that's up 50% from a year ago. And to those of you that helped make that happen, thank you. Over the years, those dollars helped fund research that led to the biologics that helped get my son and millions more up out of their wheelchairs. But we still have so much work to do. Our ask of each of you today is simple. If you're involved, get more involved if you can. And if you're not yet involved, get involved. If you like what you see, make it bigger and better. And if you don't like what you see, help us fix it. After all, this is our foundation, and these are our children. In order to help fund the research that may lead to a cure, to provide the programs they need, like this conference, and the support they deserve, we need to raise more money, a lot more money. And we can do it with your help. Again, we are the foundation of this foundation. Get involved in your local leadership council. Tell your story. And forgive me if I'm repeating some things Ann just said, but it's that important. People give to people who ask, and we all know our stories tug at the heartstrings and will be the engine that drives the success of the Walk to Cure Arthritis and Jingle Bell Runs. Invite other people to support you and your families. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, co-workers, companies you do business with, caregivers, family friends. Help find sponsors. Visit arthritis.org and get involved. Visit Kids Get Arthritis too and get engaged. The fruits of involvement go beyond raising money. It can be quite therapeutic. Consider Susan and Simon Lee from nearby Summit County, Colorado. I met them last night. A few weeks ago, their recently diagnosed 2-year-old Hayden was unable to walk, on really strong medication, and getting nourishment through a feeding tube. So Sue decided to celebrate Mother's Day by starting a walk team. And within a week, they raised more than $3,000. But perhaps more importantly, the Denver Walk to Cure Arthritis had given her a way to fight back. She told a friend she had to do this, that fundraising felt good because it provided a positive outlet for her frustrations and fears of this disease. And they can't wait till next year. Thank you. I'm also reminded of a story of a couple I met last year at this conference. They weren't able to attend this year. Mary Jo and Blaine Powers. They were here with their 2 sons, Andrew and Nathan. One of them had arthritis. The other was diagnosed a couple of months later. They live in my home state of Maryland. And we were friends on Facebook, and I was deeply moved when she posted that she was coming to my Jingle Bell Run to support my team. Should be the other way around, Mary Jo, but she just wants to do something. And a week after the Jingle Bell Run, she posted on Facebook that she and Blaine, unfortunately, had to apologize to their friends and family they would not be able to give Christmas presents this year because the financial burden of transporting both of their sons to treatment and to pay what they had to pay to get them the treatment they needed had completely exhausted them financially. But she went on to write that the gift she wants the most doesn't exist yet, and that's a cure for her boys, a cure for arthritis. She went on to say that this year her goal was to raise $5,000 for the Arthritis Foundation. And it got me to thinking that if every one of the 300,000 JA families raised $5,000, we'd have $150 million. Now, I can't promise a cure for $150 million, but I can promise you it's a heck of a down payment. Yes. It's very appropriate that we celebrate how far we've come in 30 years, but truthfully, that doesn't matter much to a suffering 8-year-old, does it? I know we all would prefer to not be here 30 years from now. This weekend, let's celebrate and take great pride in our past and focus on the future, a future free of arthritis pain. Thank you, and God bless you and your children. Now, as promised, I'd like to introduce three of a handful of people to whom we owe an enormous debt of gratitude. And there are three of the people in the room who can say, I was there when. Don Hafeli, Dr. Helen Emery, and Dr. Roger Hollister all attended our very first JA conference here in Keystone 30 years ago. Before they begin their talk, we'd like to view a special slideshow that takes us back to celebrate some of the very special JA memories and milestones. Thank you.
Good morning. around you this morning. When you hear someone say to you, people just don't give a damn about each other anymore, you can tell them that you witnessed an event where these people are so wrong. More than 1,000 people showed up here to support each other in this journey called Living a Life with Juvenile Arthritis, United for a Cure. And here I am back where it all began 30 years ago in 1984 in this spot. The National JA Conference has happened every single year since then. I guess we knew we had a good thing going. So let me backtrack for a moment to help set the scene. My daughter, Melissa, was born in 1972. I fear that some of you parents are probably younger than she is right now. She was diagnosed or developed severe juvenile rheumatoid arthritis at the tender age of 10 months, and the direction of my life changed forever. Good news, there was an Arthritis Foundation to connect to in Michigan. Bad news, there really was very little being done or even known about arthritis in children. Looking back to that time, I guess I found the place to focus my angst and energy and begin to make that change. I was one of 3 moms who met with the Arthritis Foundation in their national offices in Atlanta in 1978, and we discussed what we thought we needed and how the Arthritis Foundation could help. So I guess I was following these 3 simple rules in life. If you do not go after what you want, then you'll never have it. If you don't ask, the answer will always be no. And if you do not step forward, you will always be in the same place. By 1979, we had a small planning group on board, including parents, pediatric rheumatologists, and others interested in our cause. By 1981, we had an official organization approved by the AF Board of Trustees. We would be known as the American Juvenile Arthritis Organization, or AJAO. We wrote informational booklets about JA. There really were none before this. We developed guidelines to help parents access special education services for their kids in the schools. We worked with the United States Maternal and Child Health Services to help fund pediatric rheumatology specialty clinics and to fund the desperately needed juvenile arthritis research. And by 1984, we came to the conclusion that the best way to inform, support, and network with parents struggling with JA in little towns as well as metro cities was to bring them together in one place and unite the cause. There were anywhere, we're not sure what that number was, 100, 120, 150 or so attendees at that first JA conference here in Keystone, Colorado in 1984. Today, as you know, more than 1,000 parents, kids, teens, siblings, healthcare providers, and community and business leaders have gathered again at Keystone to celebrate who we are and what we have become, and to yet again find the support and resources they need and want. A favorite quote of mine has been by Margaret Mead, an anthropologist, "Never underestimate the power of a small group of committed people to change the world. In fact, it is the only thing that ever has." So going back to the reason for my nearly 40-year involvement with the Arthritis Foundation, here's why. 100 years from now, it won't matter what my bank account was, the sort of house I lived in, or the kind of car I drove. But the world may be different because I was important in the life of a child. My daughter, Melissa, had planned to attend here with me this year and celebrate with us. But on April 25th, she had her left foot reconstructed and ankle joint replaced. Recovery has been grueling, and she still is not allowed to put weight on that foot. So I walk through the doors today thinking of all that she has dealt with in growing up with arthritis, and knowing that life is better and easier for today's JA kids because of what AJAO, now called the Juvenile Alliance, has pushed to see happen. Melissa, in Nashville, and your hubby Manish, I did it for you. I know you are with me in spirit. And now I'd like to invite Helen Emery to come up and tell us about her perspective on 30 years ago and what we've accomplished.
Thank you, Dawn, and Dawn and her colleagues at that time were amazing advocates for their children and families with dealing with juvenile arthritis. There were probably two very important milestones that I remember. One was in 1976, when I was a first-year fellow in pediatric rheumatology, that the first conference for pediatric rheumatologists was actually held in Park City, Utah. And there were probably 30 pediatric rheumatologists from the United States and international there. That was all there were. The next major milestone I remember, and a lot of this is the result of advocacy of people like Dawn, was a maternal child health conference. The government did a wonderful program. Through Health and Human Services, the Bureau of Maternal Child Health decided to establish programs that would support coordinated, comprehensive, family-centered care for children with certain categories of chronic illnesses. And one of those was childhood arthritis. So they offered grants. I got one, Roger got one. There were 5 through the country that encouraged us to develop teams of allied health professionals so we could each get support for a physical therapist, occupational therapist, nurse specialist, and social worker, and a pediatric rheumatologist to develop programs that would increase access of care and quality of care for children with rheumatic diseases. That first conference, and that's when I first met Dawn, was in 1983, and it was because of that support that we were able to bring our teams to Keystone. And the AJAO at that time was very small, but we had a really nice collaboration. Probably about 1/3 of the people at that conference were allied health professionals. The other 2/3 were families. And it was a wonderful collaborative experience. At a personal level, it made a big difference to me. For the first time in my condo, I lived with a child who had juvenile arthritis. I had to get him up in the morning. I had to get him into a hot bath, put him through range of movement, give him his meds again at lunchtime and at dinner time, do his range of movement again, get his splints on, do all the things that a parent had to do at that time for a child with arthritis. And it opened my eyes, even though I'd been in the field for 8 or 9 years at that stage, to what it was like for a parent to go through that with their child every day. And I just did it for 3 days. Another very important experience for me was that on the opening night, I brought my family, and I had a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old at the time, and I said to the 4-year-old, let's go over and meet the children with arthritis. And he looked at me and said, you mean I should go play with the sick kids? And I was floored because he knew what I did. I'd introduced him to children with arthritis before, but he had a lot of the concepts that children have and actually adults at that time had, that there was something different about people with disabilities. And was it catchy? Was he going to get it? And so that again opened my eyes to the experience of we need to advocate that these are people with arthritis. They are not arthritics, and that we needed to make sure that they had all the opportunities and all the insights and that everybody else had. So those were very, for me, transformative experiences. And I can't tell you what it means to me today to see 1,000 people here. It's so moving. And to remember what it was like. A third to a half of those children were in wheelchairs. And now we have very few wheelchairs, and those that are in them have a hope of getting out. And a lot of that is related to the Arthritis Foundation. So this organization has meant so much to me, to my family, and to so many other professionals, as well as to the families and the children with arthritis. So I'd like to introduce Roger, who's going to give you a little bit more of a different historical perspective about where we have come from medically, what the research has meant. So thank you, and we appreciate everything you do.
At that first meeting 30 years ago, a striking number of children arrived at the meeting in wheelchairs or with electric scooters. And at the time, in terms of treatment, we had aspirin and we had painful injections of gold that had to be given by a nurse in a doctor's office. The treatment of children's arthritis remained sort of at that level into the early 90s when methotrexate became the standard of care. And for the first time, we had a medication that could actually prevent joint damage from occurring in children with arthritis. But the real breakthrough occurred in the late 1990s. In 1998, Remicade was FDA approved for the treatment of Crohn's disease, and ever since then, in the biologic era, we've had medications that have totally altered the landscape of treating children's arthritis. So, from my point of view, as a pediatric rheumatologist, it has been fabulously gratifying to be able to offer treatment to the patients now that can actually guarantee them a better outcome than was ever true in the past. But at the same time, what we are talking about is treatments. We still do not understand the cause of children's arthritis. Most likely it is going to be some combination of a genetic background with some influence from the environment that we have yet to identify. So much more research needs to be done. And this leads to the fulfillment of the motto of this conference, United to Find a Cure. So welcome to this conference. Take full advantage of everything in it, and I look forward to seeing you at various breakout sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn, Helen, and Roger. Thank you for talking today, and thank you for what you've done for us over the years. We certainly have come a long way in 30 years. Next, I'd like to introduce two very special parents. Liz and Steve Smith are longtime volunteers for the Arthritis Foundation. Their daughter, Emily, was diagnosed with JA at age 2. She is now a young adult in her 20s, and for almost 20 years, they have been involved with the Arthritis Foundation as passionate volunteer leaders and advocates on both a local and national level. To a lot of us parents, they have been our rocks and to providing us support and a shoulder when we needed it. So please join me in welcoming Liz and Steve.
Thank you for everybody. Before we get started on our presentation, I know we're celebrating an important 30th anniversary. I also want to acknowledge a very important 238th anniversary. Today is the 4th of July. And I'd like all the military people in the room to stand up, and their spouses, please. Thank you. I had the privilege of wearing our country's uniform for 28 years. Thank you for all the support you've given to all of us.
Well, to those of you who've been to the conference before, we'd like to welcome you back. Those of you who are new to the conference, welcome home. The Arthritis Foundation and fellow JA families really do become a part of our extended families. Steve and I have 6 children. The picture you saw a minute ago was of our family at our oldest daughter's wedding last fall. With all of our kids, the 3 spouses and our 2 grandchildren. All 6 of our children have been involved in some way with the foundation. 4 have been children's activity leaders at conference or at the Advocacy Summit. The others and their spouses have participated in Jingle Bell Runs or the Arthritis Walk, or just been there at conference to support other families. One of our boys actually had his first girlfriend at conference. And the girlfriend he got in the fall at home was really upset when she found out that there was another one. So anyway.
We can talk more about that later.
Our youngest daughter, Sophie, is currently studying abroad. She had wanted to be here as a volunteer, but this opportunity presented itself. So she wrote what she would have said had she been here and asked us to read the letter. That's Sophie sitting in front of a church. She just sent us the headshot of a little cafe in a town called Orvieto in Italy, where she's studying Italian. She said, "I don't remember much about my first conference. It was 1998, and I was 3 years old. In fact, the only thing I do remember is that Ronald McDonald came to visit, and I didn't like that one bit." The next conference I attended was in Orlando in 2000, so Disney World made up for the clown incident. I've been fortunate now to have attended half of the conferences, 15 of them, and I am thankful for that. By the time I was 12, I was a conference veteran, so I decided to start volunteering. I always saw how much fun the volunteers were having, and I wanted nothing more to join their ranks. I still count that as one of the best decisions I've ever made. And if I may say so, I've made a lot of good decisions. And if you know Sophie, you appreciate that. I was placed in the 4- and 5-year-old kids group, which was tiring, frustrating, and most of all, rewarding. It taught me patience, and it helped me understand what my sister must have been feeling at times during her childhood. I didn't understand when I was little, so it felt good to help kids who were like her. The conferences are held in different cities, in different hotels every year, yet I always feel like I have come home. Seeing the familiar faces of the amazing people I've met makes it feel like a huge family reunion. I've grown up at these conferences in more ways than one, thanks to them. I really miss seeing everyone this year, but I will be back next year. So Sophie sends her greetings from Italy and hopes to see all of you next year. Steve and I got involved with the Arthritis Foundation after our 5th child, Emily, was diagnosed at the age of 2. Now 22, Emily is working as a camp counselor in Vermont. So she is not here with us. She hopes to come back next year after she graduates from college and takes her NCLEX, which is the nursing licensing exam. She wants to be a pediatric nurse and is hoping to eventually land in pediatric rheumatology and dermatology.
I tell people she's staying in the business.
So she sent the following message. I will apologize. She recorded it on her cell phone from our oldest daughter's house in New York on her way to camp in Vermont, and she speaks very quickly, and this was slow for her, so.
When I attended my first conference in 1998 in Washington, D.C., it was more about getting to know other kids with arthritis and my mom getting to know other parents of kids with arthritis. Since then, I've made some good friends, and I've gotten to know a lot of other kids who've gone through the same experiences that I have. When I was 9 years old, I went to my first advocacy summit in Washington, D.C., and met my senators and congressmen and started advocating for myself and other children like me. By the time I was 16, I was volunteering at the advocacy summit and training other children. I worked at the conference as a children's activity leader when I was 18 and 19, and since then I've been able to volunteer at various summer camps and other activities for kids with arthritis. The conferences have helped me grow as an advocate and become more confident in myself and my leadership abilities, and I have been able to use those skills in other aspects of my life.
Gist of it was that Emily has grown a lot through the Arthritis Foundation, through conference, through camp, growing from a child to a volunteer, and has made her a stronger advocate for herself and for other children. So anyway, we chose to get involved with the Arthritis Foundation because this organization was where we found the resources that we needed and the resources that have been so helpful to our entire family. There are other organizations out there that do tremendous work and have the best interests of our children in mind as well. But none of those other organizations have what the Arthritis Foundation has that has meant so much to us, and that is this conference where we come back to our arthritis family. So our very first conference, Emily was 6 years old, and Steve and I thought we had done a marvelous job of exposing her to other children with arthritis and letting her know that she wasn't alone. But the very first day, and Steve learned all of this by, I guess, mail, because there wasn't much email back then. He was on an all-expenses-paid tour of the Persian Gulf. So, but she came running out, so very excited, and said, Mommy, there are other kids like me in America. They know what arthritis is, and they go to rheumatologists, and they take methotrexate. And it was that day that I realized that this really was home and a family reunion for us. So that is why we're still here. We've gotten involved in different ways. Steve will talk to you a little bit about where he finds the passion in his activities.
For the dads out there, just so you know, I was dragged kicking and screaming to my first conference. Okay. The family announced, we're going to Disney in 2000 for the JA conference. You're welcome to join us if you would like to. And getting the chance to go to Disney sounded great, and putting up with the conference seemed like a reasonable trade for it. I walked out of the first general session, to be honest with you. Went back to the bathroom that was located behind there, and there were 8 or 9 other dads in there. We were all washing our hands, trying to look busy. The sessions got better. I saw what it was doing for the family. And I realized how important it was. I've only missed one conference since then. Sorry, I'm trying to get Kate to cry. I've missed one conference since then. This is my 14th conference. And it's important, I realized, to get involved. Now I know Ann's mentioned that, Mike hit it. I'm gonna hit it again, because I've learned someplace the best way to learn something is repeat it 3 times. So this is your 3rd time. There is no such thing as an insignificant volunteer. There's staff members here with us. We become their extended staff. We help them do the mission that has been driven, or not driven, that has been expressed so many times here today. I've been involved with walks, with jingle bell runs, with golf tournaments, with galas. I've collected bid sheets at silent auctions. I've been fortunate to chair some events. I repeat, there is no insignificant volunteer. All of us have a chance to get involved, to do something important, to do something every little bit that helps. I realized at the first conference, I could not cure arthritis. We have medical professionals down here in front of us that are saying they haven't found that cure yet. But I decided right away, if I could raise that $1 to pay off Mike's down payment on this cure for this disease, then I could accomplish something. My wife said I didn't get it at first. How many guys in this room have heard that? We don't get it. Moms, quit applauding. That's okay. We get it differently. We're supposed to fix things. I couldn't fix this one, but I can raise money, and I can get involved. So I ask each of you to get involved somehow at whatever level you can with fundraising. Liz is going to talk more about advocacy for a second here too. But we can make a difference. Each one of you out here can make a difference.
And Steve and I have made a pretty good team because he doesn't really enjoy the advocacy part of it as much. I'm not very good at asking people for money. I need to get better at that, but it's something that is not my strong suit. Advocacy is also important. It's not just going to the Hill, as Ann mentioned. There's so many different forms of advocacy. We become advocates in our communities, in our schools, in our states, and nationally. We have to be there. If we don't advocate for our children, who will? So I ask you to consider where you can become involved. You may start out simply going into your office in your local area and answering the phone, or perhaps stepping up, having left this conference, and being willing to be a resource for other parents. There are so many things you can do. Contact the Arthritis Foundation in your area, see what they need, see what fits your time, your talents, your desires, and get involved. Each one of us makes a difference. Steve and I were asked why, now that Emily is a young adult, we stay involved. And it's very simple. There is no cure. And until there is a cure for our children, we cannot give up. We have to stay involved, we have to fight, and we have to be here for the parents who come behind us. And every one of you in this room now, even the first-time attendees, is a conference veteran. So I hope you will continue to fight the fight and to be here for the families that come behind us.
We'd like to open the floor now to questions, not only for Liz and myself, but for any of the members that presented this morning. There are microphones located around the room. We've got a little extra time. So, Barb, do you have a mic there? No? Okay. So if you have questions, I'd ask that you come up to the microphones that are there, and we'll ask whoever you want to have the questions, so we'll ask them to come up and answer the questions. Anybody have a question? I told the new orientation last night we have to ask 10 questions before we can leave the room, so. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Janet Minig, and I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you to Liz and Steve. We've come to a lot of conferences. I've cried with a lot of you. I've laughed with a lot of you. My daughter has learned to advocate for herself. She's 15. And I just want to say thank you for being such a great example for all of us, and that you come back every year, that we have you guys. We're just really lucky, and I just want to say thank you to even the ones who started this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Liz trained me well. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay. Questions? Other people? Not just from you, Liz, but for the highly distinguished group of people that was up here before us. Yes, ma'am. If you could move over to the microphone there in the center. Yes, ma'am. The question, I think, was what did we go through when our daughter started in college? Okay, I'll let Liz handle that one.
Actually, we were fortunate. Emily did not miss a lot of school. She was offered homebound education at one point when she was young because she'd gotten so very sick, and she said, no, my friends go to school and I am going to school. And so she went to school. And as she got older, we enforced that unless it's really, really bad, you go to school. I'm sorry your knee hurts. You know, it really stinks that your hands hurt and you can't hold the pencil today. But your job is to go to school and to get your education. So for us, going off to college wasn't too bad. You know, she did miss for infusions and medical appointments and things like that because we traveled for rheumatology care, but she didn't miss as much as some. I know there are some children who are very, very ill and miss an awful lot of school, and I think that can make the transition harder. Are you looking at a child going to college soon? The Office of Disability Services at the university or college that your child attends is your point of contact. And make sure you have the letter from the child's doctor, and make sure you have a copy of the 504 plan or the IEP when you go meet with them, and they'll get you started.
I'll tell you a funny story. When we went to visit the first college that Emily picked, I took Emily, we went into the gift shop. I said, "Where's your mom going?" She's going, "Oh, she's going in to interrogate the nurses."
And I did. I mean, I wanted to know what the resources were at the college before she made her decision, what were the resources in town. Because of our involvement here with the Arthritis Foundation, we were very fortunate to be able to call a pediatric rheumatologist in Pennsylvania and say, who do you recommend in the town where she's going to school? And we got names, and that rheumatologist helped us set Emily up. So yeah, your involvement pays off in more ways than one. But that is what I did.
One other thing I'll mention real quick, and you saw it from Sophie's letter. I've been saying for years, and the dads who have attended the dads groups have heard me say this for years, that I think this conference is just as important for the siblings as it is for the child with arthritis. The child with arthritis has been treated all year. She or he has been seeing the medical professionals, has been there with mom, they've been answering the questions. Sometimes, and we never do it on purpose, but the child with arthritis is left in the waiting room, is left at home with dad, or with a caregiver, or in the corner of the exam room. Here they get to meet other kids with arthritis that aren't their siblings. Big difference. They get to meet other siblings so they can talk about this. And I know our youngest son wrote his college essay, and it started with, "Mom asked me to carry Emily's bags again today." And he went on from there. So it has an impact. This is a family disease. That's why this is a family conference. So encourage your siblings, or the children who do not have the disease today, to participate in the conference, because they will come away with more, in a lot of cases, than the child with arthritis will. Other questions, please? Yes, sir. You're on.
Hey, I just wanted to thank you for the retrospective. My daughter's 4. She's on naproxen and metho most days. You wouldn't realize she had juvenile arthritis, but to look back 30 years and see everything that you all have done to get her to that point, I just want to thank you. So.
Hey guys, I will mention, this is your chance to ask the CEO also. She's sitting over here nervous, so if you have questions. Yes, ma'am.
I have a daughter who's going into 7th grade. She was diagnosed when she was 8, and so I think she probably had it when she was 4. But when we finally went to our first pediatric rheumatologist's office, she didn't mention anything about the Arthritis Foundation. She had pamphlets at her office, but she didn't mention about the national conferences. And I was fortunate just having a grandma who had arthritis, knowing about the Arthritis Foundation. So I took it upon myself to call. But my husband and I, this is our 3rd year at the conference. We've met families that didn't hear about it for many years. I met a mom, she's probably in this room, she said her daughter was diagnosed, I think, when she said 3 or 4, and she didn't hear about it till her daughter was 10, about the national conference. And that kind of saddens me, because it is like a family reunion, and I learn so much each year that I'm here. How can we get the information out and get those pediatric rheumatologists, even the nurses, to get that information to every family with kids? That's my big question.
I think Ann has some ideas for us about that.
Maybe I can turn my mic on. I turned it off. So you can hear me? That's an important question we have to answer. You know, when I was interviewed, the volunteers asked me that. I've had a double knee replacement. I've shared with you I have a daughter, and certainly no one suggested that I call the Arthritis Foundation either. I mean, we've certainly had a long history of having rheumatologists involved with the organization, but I think it's an important issue for us now. And when I talk to you about help and support, you know, one of the things we're doing as a precursor to that is we've started a task team where we're looking to have leadership volunteers help us figure out how to get other health professionals involved in creating a new patient kit, a referral system. And so it's at least top of mind. I don't know that I have all the answers right now, but it's definitely, we've only formed 6 task teams, and it's one of them for us to look at that. And we know that that's an area where we have to do more work. So.
Thanks. And let me add one more thing to what Ann said. I think that kind of play off of what I was saying earlier today. It falls back to us, in part, as volunteer leaders, to get in our doctor's face, to get in I just had knee surgery a few months ago. I have a physical therapist, I have an orthopedic surgeon, I have an orthopedic doctor who referred me to the orthopedic surgeon. None of them have anything about the Arthritis Foundation in their offices. And all of them make their living off of this dreadful disease. And we need to get in their face, politely, and ask them to have a Jingle Bell Run team and a walk team and support you. Those are the kinds of businesses I was referring to when I said we have to encourage the businesses we deal with to get involved. So we are a network of involved families, and that's how we get them involved too. So, another answer.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm the very proud grandfather of a 3-year-old that is really opening my eyes to this. And first, I'd like to just thank everybody here, the volunteers. I know it starts with one person, and that one person can be you, and it's going to be me pretty soon here. But my question is really opening my eyes, and you know, this national conference, I assume this is a global issue. I mean, it's not just in the United States. And so I'd like to just understand how this national conference gets tied in globally with the European conference or with Asian or South America, Africa. Is there I mean, I assume this is a global problem.
It is a global problem. I don't know whether or not other countries have anything like this. I think that there's interest, but Ann can maybe give us...
Yeah, I don't know of an international JA conference like this. I will tell you that I had the opportunity recently to meet with other, I was at a conference about osteoarthritis, and I had the opportunity to meet with other my partners from the Netherlands and Germany and France. There were about 30 companies or 30 organizations represented. And we had a lot of good conversation about how we needed to be more collaborative, that we needed in the research area and also in education. And so we have agreed, Janet Yale, who's the CEO from the Canadian Cancer Society, and I have invited that group to come back and meet with us in Boston around the ACR meeting and to begin that discussion. So I don't know that there's been a lot done there, but we are going to begin to have some of that more collaborative discussion.
Okay.
Helen?
Yes, sir, and just so you do know, we have had people attend the conference. We had a group of almost 50 New Zealanders a couple of years ago that came in from the conference as well, so they know about us. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
At that first conference, there was a boy and his mother from Australia, and his name was Ben, and I recently, because of this 30th anniversary, reached out and got a hold of Ben and his mother. And Ben went back and said, there is nothing like this in Australia, and he started it. And he was actually working for the Arthritis Foundation equivalent over there for a while. He's now doing motivational speaking. He's coaching a football team. So just coming to one of these conferences opened up his eyes to what could be done, and he went and did it. There are other international collaborations. CARA has an equivalent in Europe, and there's also an equivalent in South America. Many of these countries don't have the same resources we do, but they are progressively increasing their activities for families.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I have a 9-year-old who was recently diagnosed, and she also has Down syndrome and a lot of other health issues going on. So one of our biggest struggles has been getting comprehensive care for her and getting doctors to talk to doctors. So we travel for pediatric rheumatology, but you know, there's other issues, other specialists we see related to her arthritis. And so I'm curious to know if there's, where the research hub is for JIA, where the leading efforts are being done, like specifically what Children's Hospital, and if that involves collaboration between specialists and not just the pediatric rheumatology, but the ophthalmologist and the gastroenterologist, and what that looks like or where.
Dr. Hollister or Dr. Emery, if either of you would, thank you.
Thanks. Great question.
And we can take
When Anne introduced that concept of CARA, the Childhood Arthritis and Rheumatology Research Alliance, that's exactly what they're about. Almost every pediatric rheumatologist in this country is a part of that, and that's one of the reasons that the Arthritis Foundation has been so supportive, because it's providing a lot of the infrastructure, funding some of the projects that they are doing. And within that, there are groups that are working on many rheumatic diseases, and there are collaborations, for instance, with the ophthalmologists. For people who have kidney disease, there's collaborations with nephrology. So yes, it is definitely looking beyond just the world of rheumatologists, but developing the strengths of all of the specialties that our children can be affected by.
Yes, ma'am, this will be the last question. So.
It's not a question, Steve. Janet Lee Taylor. I would just add to what Helen mentioned is that and to your question, is that the Arthritis Foundation originally funded an innovative research grant for PR Coin, and to that point, it's titled the Pediatric Rheumatology Collaborative Outcomes Improvement Network. So it's centers across the country as well as Canada who are joining together. We have this fabulous research community through CARA, but then how do we get that into practice? How do we standardize our communication with ophthalmologists? How do we standardize that care so no matter where any child with arthritis lives, they have the best outcome possible, and we don't see this variation in care. And so we're very excited. We have a grant through PCORI that will bring CARA, PR Coin, and the Arthritis Foundation together. And I think there's so much energy around this, and it will have patients and families at the center of this. So I'm one of those long-termers I was here at the first conference, and I'll probably start to cry too. So I see Dawn there, and you've come a long way, baby, but we've got a long way to go. And this is just so exciting, I can't tell you. Thank you.
Can you take one more? Okay. Go ahead, one more question.
I just wanted to say a few things. That one way that my daughter got information out to her classmates was to give a presentation to her classmates. She's in 5th grade, and a lot of her classmates didn't know a lot about arthritis or if they could catch it, or because she has systemic, so she was very sick, and you could see physical signs that she was sick. You know, she had a fever and a rash, and they were afraid that they would, catch what she had. So she advocated for herself and gave a presentation to her class and to her school, and that sparked conversations between other kids and their parents about what is arthritis and just getting more information out. And then also that here in the Denver area, we've been just felt so blessed to be here to see Dr. Hollister, to get in with all the specialists that we've seen through them and Children's Hospital. So, I've just felt really blessed that we live here and able to get connected with them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the conference. Make yourselves at home because you're home. I'll give it back to Julie now.
Thank you again, Dawn and Roger and Helen. You guys have been amazing, and thank you for everything that you've done, and Liz and Steve.